YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this absolutely gorgeous rendition V2 Ultra Micro by E-flite Cirrus SR22T. And look at all of the scale details, beautiful flashing lights, and yes, a little pilot that barely has a nose. Amazing. This thing is great. I don't know why the landing gear do come off if you're into that sort of thing, but this has fixed gear. It does have a steerable nose gear, obviously rudder, elevator, and aileron. So it is a 4-channel, but it comes with AS3X Plus, or AS3X, I should say, and no flaps. So just keep that in mind as you're making your considerations here on Brian Phillips RC. We show the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. That's 50% throttle. Beautiful. And we're just gonna get around like we always do here on Brian Phillips RC and get you guys a quick clip of this absolutely gorgeous rendition of general aviation that you can handle without taking out a second mortgage or third or fourth. If you've ever dreamed of flying to the Bahamas, although that might be a bit of a stretch, you can get one of these and shrink your family. Wasn't there a movie about that?
Just need a lot of batteries.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So guys, here on Brian Phillips RC, we want to help you appreciate and enjoy your RC experience as much as possible. And so that's why we film at our beautiful little aerodrome that we're trying to build here in the central Midwest in Iowa. And yes, we did just build a pond because we're putting a dam gift shop right next to the dam that might also be known as a hangar to some, but here's the dam runway and it's gonna be right here. Pretty cool, guys. And you're probably thinking, why are you telling us about the damn runway and the damn gift shop on an early release of such a beautiful plane? Because that is part of my ambition, is to fly real general aviation planes as well as all these beautiful RCs. And so part of doing that involves, at least for us, the making of an absolutely gorgeous damn gift shop. So if you're brand new to RC, we're here to help you. Let's go a few steps out here, cam crew. Let's try a couple of touch and goes. There you go. Now, I gotta tell you guys, 3S, 300 milliamp hour, right through where the cherry used to be. This thing is capable, I'm at 50% or sub 50, or you could just do that and you could drag out the big loops. Yes, there is pack telemetry on this plane, meaning that your flight pack will report in terms of an actual bar graph looking battery on your transmitter. So when you're flying, you don't have to depend on those pesky timers that are indifferent to the way that you're flying. So you could be cruising around like this, just enjoying a absolutely relaxing, beautiful evening flight, or you could be cruising around flying it like you stole it, like it's an F-14 or P-51. It really doesn't matter to me what you guys want to do. It's all in the cards. When you get one of these Ultra Micros, you're going to be flying what is a hobby grade plane on a very small platform, and that's why they called an Ultra Micro Extreme.
Do you have to say it like that?
Yes,
okay.
You have to. Or you just say UMX. So if you guys aren't familiar with Ultra Micro Extremes, it's one of the best ways to enter the hobby in terms of really persistently flying like a bigger plane. This plane feels exactly like its big sister, which would be 1.5 meters from E-flite as well. Very good plane. Not even 100% sure. Is that one still out, cam crew?
Yes, it is.
So coordinate your turns and don't forget AS3X and safe. We'll show you how to set all that stuff up. Watch what happens when you turn safe on. Boom! Automatically levels the plane, and so you can fly. You can let go of the sticks and it'll just go straight, okay? So when I let go of the sticks, it's gonna fly straight, but it's gonna limit my bank angles and still yet let me fly the plane. That's one of the reasons why we really enjoy Ultra Micro Extremes. If you're into flying in safe, or you're brand new to the hobby or need a little bit of help, you can still fly them. In fact, I'll take a landing here in safe, something I rarely do. Okay, so a little bit of throttle, just pull back on the stick. And look at that beautiful landing. We got a little bouncy bounce, but that's okay. I'm blaming it on safe, so I don't have to take the responsibility for my actions. All right, I'm gonna unclip. That was 39 seconds left on our 5, and you can see we're starting to get some chimes from our pack telemetry, but that doesn't mean we're out of battery. But I'll show you the battery, and I'll show you just how easy it is to swap it out right now so you can get the drill down. Now remember, this has a Hextronics balance lead, so it's just like a regular dumb battery that happens to be JST equipped. So you may need some adapters, and don't forget, this manual calls out only 3S. And I can tell you this, it needs a little bit more juice than some of the others because it's a little bit bigger in terms of the Ultra Micro status, in my opinion. And with a long, narrow cord like this and a beautiful 3-bladed prop, I tend to think that flying this on 2S would be somewhat lame. I would go with 3S myself all the time. That's what they suggest. And this is where I've placed my battery. Now, we did check the CG, we marked it, we measured it, all that stuff, just to see if this would be about right. And this has worked really good for us. I wrap my batteries with Velcro lately, and it's been working really nice. Even better, and look how nice that is. Instead of those micro PH 2S connectors that were like a balance lead, only smaller than this, these are gonna give you the capability of charging on a non-smart charger. Now, of course, we use smart chargers that are equipped with IC3 connectors. So because they're IC3, you would need an EC3 or an IC3 to JST adapter. We'll show all that in the Unbox build radio setup. You see this one here? So that's just a regular strap I stole from another plane. Nothing magical about it. Of course, you can use the provided Velcro if you only got one battery, and you can just peel and stick it to the back of your battery, and then you can load your battery in. We're actually gonna fly one more flight for you.
And we'll link to all the different connectors and adapters that you might need in the description.
If you're gonna fly on an old 2S that's got the micro PH, or you can actually be buying a 2S with a JST and Hextronics balance lead as well. You'll notice that these start when you get connection. Very cool scale details, come to life. Now I'm still in safe. I'm gonna go back to AS3X. We'll show you how to set it to that switch if you don't want it on your gear switch. I don't like it on my gear switch because I am so habitual as a pilot that I will pull the gear up on planes that don't have gear, and then guess what? My safe turns on and I crash into trees. All right, here goes nothing. Look at this beautiful taxi, guys. The thing taxis amazing. It's one of the biggest benefits of Ultra Micro Extreme is that they actually put decent landing gear. Now, there's still very small landing gear, and so of course you're gonna have a little bit of difficulties compared to the big birds, where you can really get in and adjust and have, you know, more robust landing gear with springs and things like that. But these are made of a spring material. We'll go out a couple of steps here, camera crew. So you may have noticed that I'm kind of taking it easy. That's just because the way that general aviation planes fly, I'm trying to mimic that because that's what I love doing, inside pass. And I just want you guys to see the thing flies like a bigger plane, and it's not dead calm today, okay? So if it's not dead calm today, then that means that you could fly this in not dead calm conditions. Now, I will advise you, any and all Ultra Micros fly basically better in dead calm. I'm gonna actually take a landing in AS3X with the wind. See if I can bring it in and grease it. Oh yeah, beautiful. That was exactly the way I would do it in a real full-scale plane. Also, I noticed that this plane kind of hops off the ground just a little bit, and I'm not sure exactly why. Ooh, big gust there. Okay, here we go. Flying it, we'll see if we can get it right down here to us. Oh, you see what's happening, guys? We're dropping a wingtip. Why would that possibly happen with a long, slender wing? Because you have to keep flying it. So I'm gonna show you how to do a landing where it doesn't crash like that and make you feel like a moron. Okay, so I'm gonna go back around, back taxi, get it lined up, clearance for takeoff here. Yes, beautiful. A little bit of turbulence over there, but the AS3X can handle it just fine. Beautiful, Beautiful. Looks like it's snowing over there. Did you see that?
Does it? Oh, it does.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just noticing how much the wind has picked up since we started doing this.
Okay, here we go. So what you got to do is keep flying it until you're on the ground. Look how much nicer it is now. Touch and go. Beautiful. Guys, Ultra Micro Extremes will test your skills just like a bigger plane. And that's exactly what you want. That's what I was saying earlier about it's a good place to start. Now, I'm not saying this is probably where I would start. Admittedly, this is a little bit harder to fly than the Sport Cub S, or even like the Aero Scout would be a great choice on just a beginner plane. But I gotta say, if I'm flying a plane like this, I'm doing it in style. And that's part of the reason why most of you that are brand new in the hobby, you think, hey, I need an F-16, I need an F-18, I need an F-22, well, an F-22 would be pretty easy. But if you're doing that, get a Habu, have success, move into something harder. And believe me, they're all harder than Habus, okay? Habu is one of the easiest planes. Now, I'm not talking about the vintage Habus. Those were kind of hard to fly. I'm talking about the newer, redesigned in the last 10 years. They've put out 3 versions, a 50 millimeter, a 70 millimeter STS safe trainer, and then they also have, or a sport safe trainer. Is that what the sport trainer with safe or something like that? There you go, that's what STS stands for. And then they have an SS for super sport. And that's gonna be a 6S version of the same size class. But I'm gonna just tell you this right now, that one in yellow and white, I would go for the orange and just get the 50, hand launch, belly land, and just live it up. Then when you're ready for gear up, gear down, or wheels up, wheels down, as we like to call it in RC, and in full scale, I suppose, I would just get that. Learn to fly, and then you can get into anything. Now, these little Ultra Micros will help refine your skills in a very manageable, bite-sized, financially way. And also talk about a pint-size package for storage, guys. One of the biggest issues with this Ultra Micro right here, and you've already seen it, is that if you slow down, you will drop a wingtip, okay? So keep the thing flying, and you'll notice how great the thing can land. I'm 50% throttle, 3S 300, perfect CG, okay? Bringing it in, just relaxing. Bringing it down about 25%. Little teeny bit of flare, and there it is, guys. Absolutely gorgeous.
Well, and the other thing that you haven't mentioned is it's sub 250.
Oh yeah,
so if
this
you have
thing's
restrictions
well
on where
sub
you can
250.
fly.
Yep, and you don't need no stinking remote ID.
Yep.
And to be honest with you guys, we don't really care if you use remote ID. That's totally between you, God, and the FAA agent that happens to drive by. Because let's be honest, unless you're flying an international airport, which would be a big mistake, by the way, it's highly illegal, then you probably don't have a lot to worry about. At least at this point. We don't talk about a lot of legalities on this channel because we are not lawyers. We don't even pretend to be one on YouTube. And there are YouTubers that are lawyers, so you can check with them. But what I'm gonna tell you is right now, the lawyers have written their final closing arguments, and the closing arguments are as such. Buy this thing from the links in the video description below. Look at that, absolutely gorgeous! If you don't already have a Cirrus SR22 in real life, you need to get this, just so you can tell your friends, yeah, I just got my airplane this weekend. Let's take the kids to the Bahamas. I just have to get into the Honey, I Shrunk My Kids machine.
Right.
And make sure I don't get crushed by a fruit snack.
An ant.
or what is a cream pie? Is that what the cream pie?
That? We just watched that movie recently.
Okay, so there you go. Man, who got mud all over our driveway? They're very disrespectful to my aerodrome. But guys, look at that beautiful thing. Absolutely gorgeous scale lines. The thing flies great. It's definitely not gonna be an F-14. It's not gonna be an F-16. It's not gonna be the type of plane that you're gonna wanna fly super dynamically for aerobatics. But you can if you want. The reason I say you won't want to is because it looks the part. So part of what I love about scale RC is that I can make a plane look very real. And I like the third person viewpoint. I know some of you guys are into FPV. I'm not. I love watching the planes fly like I'm at an air show. But then I also want the capability of controlling where it's going and what it's interacting with and how close it's getting to a structure or a tree line or a tree or a waterway or whatever it is. That's what I love about this hobby. And I've loved that since I was a little kid, and I would have literally killed for something like this as a kid, okay? Now, unfortunately for me, the only way you could get a plane like this was probably to build it from stick built, and you had to be extremely skilled, which meant that you were like 75 years old, because you would build a lifetime of skills to put something like this together. Now, there's those freak children that are like 6 years old that fly amazing 3D aerobatics at all the air shows, and they're awesome, and it makes me very jealous.
They're not stick building their own planes.
Exactly, that's the point. Well, they are turbine jets too, though.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So guys, here on Brian Phillips RC, you don't have to be that 6-year-old kid. You can be that 50-year-old or 30-year-old or 60 or 75-year-old guy that's worked a career, had his children through his home, and then moved on and had grandchildren. And you can start this hobby today. We're here to tell you that. Now, don't start with this, because you'll fail. And this is a low cost input, okay? If you start here, you could do a lot worse. You're probably not gonna start with this transmitter. You'll probably start with something like the NX7E, or maybe even cheaper. And that's one of the beautiful parts of this hobby, is that it's gotten to where to have this much technology in your hands, first of all, it didn't exist in the 80s, but it would have cost like 5,000 bucks. Now this is like in the $400 to $500 range. Get them on sale, get them while they're hot, you know what I mean? Go pay full retail, you might spend a few bucks more, or if you upgrade batteries and lanyards and different things, you can spend more. But that being said, for $1,000, you can be in flying most off-the-shelf, high quality, entry-level charger, batteries, a couple, and a transmitter. And you can be really flying planes. And by the way, that first step is a lot more expensive and hard than most people understand. And so we're gonna help you do it in such a way that your wife doesn't divorce you, hopefully. But if that does happen, we're gonna give you lots of stuff to put in the empty rooms in your house. So, here on Brian Phillips RC, we understand we're realists, and sometimes people divorce. So, if you wanna help support us, check the links in the video description below. And all joking aside, my wife is my camera crew. We've been married for many years. We've been married longer than we've been alive otherwise. Ooh.
Yes.
Does that make us old?
Yes.
Or dumb?
Both. Maybe me more than you.
So if you want to help support Brian Phillips RC, and when I say Brian Phillips RC, I mean our family of 6, this aerodrome we're building. And yes, there is really, we've had full-scale airplanes on that hill back there. Mm-hmm. And we have giant windsocks. It's not just for RC. There's gonna be a huge aircraft building that houses combines and things as well. And it's gonna be awesome. And I can't wait to share it with you right here at Brian Phillips RC. So if you haven't already clicked the bell, just do it. Click subscribe and then click the bell. You'll be notified of all new future content. It's amazing. If you don't click the bell, that's fine. Just subscribe. You'll help support our channel. The algorithm seems to prefer that a little bit. And then if you see something that pops up, see what we're doing. Sometimes it's not just about the plane. Sometimes it's about the next big ridiculous project that we're working on. And we're gonna share it all with you right here on Brian Phillips RC. Also, stay tuned. We're gonna have the Unbox build radio set up. That is something we do on every plane we do now. We haven't always, but for thousands of videos, we've been doing it, okay? Literally thousands. Mm-hmm. So that means every plane that we unbox, build, and radio set up, we show from the literal packaging from UPS, FedEx, DHL, whatever it is, we cut it open. We show you all the parts coming out, and then we make it work. And then guess what? You can follow along in exact high fidelity and amazing audio quality, unless you go back a little bit further where I was too hard-headed to use lav mics.
And on a UMX, the Unbox build radio setup will follow immediately after the flight.
It's all on this video you're watching. So we'll show the details that we know might be helpful to you, and you can learn whatever you think you need to learn. Because at the end of the day, everybody is at different stages, different steps of their RC experience. And if you guys are on a hiatus and you've had a couple of years sitting on the sidelines, get off the sidelines, you know, get in the game, because I'm telling you, it is getting really good. Now, is this not for you? I understand there's some of you that aren't gonna be into the general aviation, but you do want that F-14. Well, all you have to do is go to brianphillipsrc.com or bprc.me. That's your short link, so you don't have to spell my name, first or last name. And then you can go there and we have all these videos ready to rock and roll. And if you decide to buy one, we have links right there. You can click on it, you can see how much it costs, see how much it'll cost to ship, if there is any shipping, see if there's any coupon codes on bprc.me first. Save a buck or two, and then you can spread it a little further. But I'm gonna tell you right now, we don't line stuff with BS, fastest, cheapest, most beginnerist plane. That's a bunch of malarkey most of the time. I mean, there occasionally we'll have a plane that is a great beginner plane, but let's be frank, guys, how many can be the best? Only one. And we know about 10 that are pretty good.
And if you're looking for beginner planes, if you go to brianphillipsrc.com,
we sort them that way.
There's a tab at the top that says beginner planes.
And there's also a plane tabs that says general aviation planes. And there's a tab that says jets, and there's a tab that says warbirds, and a tab that says helis, and a tab that says UMX. And so you can find exactly what you're looking for without having to search the entire World Wide Web. Because believe me, when the search starts, the search will take you into very deep, dark parts of the interwebs, where you will find many Chinese secrets. We like to call them lies in America. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, we work with a lot of Chinese companies. China cheats, you already know it. You, okay? So we're gonna help level the playing field with truth, because we're your truth detector here on Brian Phillips RC. Get out of the chair, into the air. You know where to find it first on Brian Phillips RC. That is if they get it to us in time, or at all. All right, that's all we got for you. Hopefully we answered all your questions about this absolutely gorgeous and available, hopefully right now, Cirrus SR22 Ultra Micro Extreme. Check it out, all new from E-flite. Unbox next. Thanks for watching. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. We're gonna open this brand new amazing box right now. If you're brand new to Brian Phillips RC, we unbox them, we build them, we set up the radios, we do all that stuff so you don't have to know how to. And we try to make it as easy as possible. Ooh, it's unlabeled. Amazing. All right, here goes nothing, guys. Super excited for this one. All right, I have the box upside down, so I gotta flip it. Yours might look slightly different than this.
Probably a little.
Because, well, we'll just open it and show you. Ultra Micros are awesome for unboxes because we basically open them and they're done. I love it. Oh, look at that. It's an Ultra Micro. This must be the original box. The original box? Because look at this. It is a different livery.
Oh, it is.
Oh, so gorgeous. Okay, so let's untape and take the foam to protect the foam from the foam, away from the foam. So this is the Ultra Micro Cirrus SR22T. And we are super excited. As you can see, this is the old box. It's an early product development sample, number 2, based on the tape. And so when they send these out for early reviews, we get product development samples. So there you go, some foam to protect the foam from the foam. Ooh, that is gorgeous. I love the colors. So pretty, and it's painted inside too. Gorgeous. Yeah. So let's pop this sucker out and see what we've got to work with. Oh yes, so beautiful. Man, that is fully painted, everything inside and out. Wow, and look, no nose, almost no nose, Pinocchio pilot, strange. This thing has one heck of a long wingspan. Look at that. We've obviously got some beautiful LEDs here, and looks like no flaps, which is a bummer, because I love the flaps on the big one. Looks like they switched to a ball link here, as well as here, and here on the ailerons, and removable landing gear. I don't remember on the original if they were removable or not, but I can definitely say, I don't think we had it. My friend had it, and so I flew his a couple of times, but I don't think we ever had it. So beautiful. That's and really nice. That's why we like unboxes for Ultra Micros.
So now we're done.
Let's go ahead and get the manual. We're gonna do the full radio setup for you. Now, our apologies. We don't know what to tell you about the way that the box is gonna look, but I would assume it looks a lot like the plane. And let's cut this out actually. So don't forget to flip this upside down. It will actually show you, or that's where they'll hide the manual for you. One of the reasons we really like ultra micros is that you get a hobby grade experience in a very small package. And so, not to be confused with some of the planes that have crashed into our Christmas tree here, most of those planes, with the exception of one of them, is going to be more of like a toy grade experience. It's still very fun and definitely worth consideration by all means, but it's not the same. What?
I would say there's a little plastic baggie in there.
Where?
Right here.
Oh, yeah, this is Velcro and a little hex drive that's used for probably replacing the spinner or getting to the prop or something like that. We're probably not gonna have to worry about that in our Unbox Build radio setup. I'm gonna close this just to get this out of the way. One of the reasons we really like these things is that you've got a really big flight experience with a really small package. Now, how does that differ from the toy grade experiences that we've seen on other small aircraft? It differs because when you fly this, it's gonna be like flying the bigger version, okay? And we love the bigger version of the Cirrus SR22T. Absolutely gorgeous model. And I'm not sure, I haven't seen it for a while. I guess I haven't paid attention to it. But one of the things you have to be aware of is with these models, there's different battery types, but we're gonna come to that as soon as I open it and show you how the battery installs. We'll set ours up on our NX10. You may have an NX7E like you see over here, and if you do, that's perfectly fine for a model like this, and you could have something even better than this, but this is gonna be this is where we like to put people. If you're asking our opinion, the NX10 is actually a 20-channel transmitter. It's gonna do all the smart stuff you want, and if you wanna go a little bit higher, the reason we like the 10 is because you've got the sliders, the roll knob up here, and if you were to go down to the 8, you would lose these sliders. I don't particularly need the sliders, and so when we were using it initially, it was because we needed the extra 2 channels. Well, now on the NX8, I believe you still got 20 channels. On the NX7E, you've got 14 channels, but you're gonna pick up audio events on the NX8, NX10. And then of course, there's some different package levels you can get that have, you know, different finishes and different boxes and things that come with them, and lanyards and different bigger batteries. But I'm after the channels because that's what we need. So let's look inside of this plane. Obviously the paint is beautiful. The spinner is gorgeous, 3-bladed prop. You can see that strong brushless motor just clicks to the next magnet. It's so gorgeous. I love the silver. I wonder how it's gonna look in the sky. And a stepped wing here, as you can see, and just looks absolutely detailed as it gets. This carbon fiber reinforcement, it feels very stiff. Now these long, slender wings are generally not gonna be for the faint of heart, but with AS3X Plus or AS3X, I'm not sure if we have AS3X Plus in this, we're gonna have extremely good flight performance and safe. How does this work? I thought, oh, see, it's pulling forward slightly. See that? I don't know. Oh, does this come off? Oh, did they switch?
The whole middle part comes off, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's, oh, there it goes. So it goes up like this. I'm glad I didn't pull really hard because I just about yanked that thing off. So this is a product sample here. Okay, so we have a micro, ultra micro, extreme UMX, multi-purpose brick is what we call this usually. And this has the elevator or rudder and the elevator or rudder. This one here would be the rudder because it's going to the steerable nose gear, which of course then goes up to that linkage, okay? And so of course they've got a little Velcro pad here to receive the battery. And it looks like, if you look at this, there's this big instrument cluster. Well, that's actually so they can get you more room for your battery clearances, and really easy to open that up. Looks like there might actually be, there's a vent hole on here, because these things, believe it or not, will actually fog up when you have a big temperature change. That is so gorgeous. I love that you can see through the back here, and you can see right into the receiver board and everything, which is so cool. Now that board is also the receiver if it weren't already clear. To remove these landing gear, it looks like the type that we would just basically have to lift on this little tip right here, and then that allows you to slide in and they come right off. So you can actually remove the landing gear. However, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't remove the landing gear on this plane because the landing gear are fixed on a Cirrus SR22T.
If you only had access to a grass field and grass tops is your only option,
then maybe that would be better.
Be the reason?
I don't know. I would still land it with these. And then softer tires, which is nice. Show the people the squish.
A little bit.
So it's definitely good there. That helps a lot with ground handling and touchdowns because you have to just absolutely grease the landings if you have a harder, firmer tire. But there is a little bit of spring to these landing gear. And so that's one thing that you're gonna get. Now this would also come out too, but I've never heard of a Cirrus with retractable landing gear in real life. So that's a little bit strange. Okay, so that all being said, we do have a manual. So the manual is gonna help indicate what battery size they recommend. And so I'm gonna come over here by the camera crew and we're gonna look at that right now so we can come up with a number. I'm assuming they probably want us to flight on 300.
Yep, 3S 300.
And it's not 3 or 4, it's not 2 or 3.
No, just
what do they
3.
say? Just 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So that leads me to the battery type. Okay. So we just did a video just the other day where we were flying the float equipped Turbo Timber Evo in the new blue and white style. And we were showing all these different battery types. If you didn't check that out, we've got them here so that we can show you. If you wanted to use a 2S, which I don't know that it'll actually fly on 2S, this is the old micro pH ends. And so that obviously won't plug into your JST. Now, this is not the same as a Hextronics balance lead, which is what comes on the new versions, okay? So this is still a balance plug, but this is the micro pH right here, and this is the Hextronics 2S lead, okay? So you've got different pins, and they've got different keys, and they're different pitch is what they call that. Now this also has a discharge lead in addition to the balance lead, which allows you to charge this. This looks like a smart battery, but it's not a smart battery. It's just a dumb battery. It doesn't have the smart circuit, and you won't get into the smart circuits until you get up to these larger batteries that would be like this size here, 450 milliamp hour 50C3S. I believe that's the first size. And so the reason I show you this one right now is because with that special IC2 end, you might consider buying this so that you can charge both types of batteries, this adapter and this adapter. This would allow you to use that type of battery in this plane because you can take off the IC2 end and then go to JST. This is actually the other direction, to be honest. See that? Mm-hmm. So that would be for charging. They make one of these that's the other way around, that's for discharge as well. But if you want to have a JST plug from your old micro pH end, then there is an adapter that you can purchase that will take and allow you to then energize your plane using this JST. Keep in mind, this is a small connector, it's small leads, and it will only handle so much current no matter what you do. And so just keep that in mind. The reason we show you this is because these batteries are a little bit confusing in that they have this weird octopus-like cable that's used to charge them on a regular charger. So now if you guys are using like an S155, that's totally fine, but the screen is a little bit harder for us to film. Keep in mind, they've got this slide so you can go from an IC3 to an IC5 for your larger, but still 4S batteries or below, okay? This one is the S2200, which is what we use predominantly on this channel to charge our battery. So I'm gonna just show you charging the battery that they prescribe for this plane. I have wrapped a piece of Velcro around it because I just loathe the concept of putting Velcro, adhesive Velcro on these little ultra micro batteries because they always seem to be in the wrong spot. So this is the battery that we're gonna actually use. But just keep in mind, you would have to absolutely use this style, but this is what I'm gonna use. So you need to have this adapter or something like it. You can use either an EC3 or an IC3. This is IC3, it has the data jack, but the data jack is not populated by a cable, just full disclosure. And it wouldn't matter anyway because this is a dumb battery, okay? So it's a dumb pack, meaning it doesn't have smart technology. You plug this in, and then these are black, so it's sometimes kind of hard to see. That goes down, and you can move it all the way to the left side. and it populates the screen with the data about the battery. You'll have to set the charge rate. I happen to have just charged this last time, but if that was set to another battery, it would be at the previous battery setting, because since this isn't a smart battery, you have to tell it how to charge. Okay, so in this case, this is 300 milliamp hours. So that'd be 0.3 amps. So it's 0.3 amps. So if you click on that, you can scroll in whatever you want and say, I want to charge it at 2C, then that'd be 0.6 amps, which this battery is probably fine to do that because it is a 30C. So the way I figure is, just so you guys know, my general rule of thumb is if I have a 30C pack, I figure that's about 3C would be usually safe. If they indicate directly on the battery, then you can do exactly what they call out. So like this one happens to be a 5C or 11 amps charge rate max, and that's a 30C. So they're saying about 5C is safe. I'm saying the rule of thumb I follow is about 1/10 of the C rating. So if it's a 25C, you could do like 2.5. Again, that's just generic. It's not necessarily manufacturer prescribed. It's Brian Phillips, you know, rule of thumb. Okay, so in this case, 0.6 amps, and then I'm gonna scroll down to the start. And then once I scroll down to start, I'm gonna click start. And then it starts running, and you can press the down, and it's gonna give you the per cell values. Of course, it's already been charged, so it's gonna automatically overshoot. And then you can see your impedance and all that stuff, which I'm not gonna bore you with those details. But once it's charged, you'll hear the Facebook data center kick off and all the cooling fans. All right, so then you can just unplug your battery and you're ready to rock and roll in your airplane. Part of the reason we go through this is that we understand that especially battering ultra micros can be a little bit daunting for beginners because there's a lot of choices. Most of them don't work. You have to get the right battery. Now that we have a JST plug on the airplane, it is quite a bit easier. And because we now have these balanced leads installed on most of the Spectrum offerings, it makes it a little easier. Back in the day, when we had these, if you wanted to charge these, I'll just show you real quick how this works. If you would be using this type of battery, I'll use the other channel. So you plug in the discharge lead, and then if you were to plug this battery in, watch what happens. It'll populate the screen partially, okay? You can see 8.2, go to the other side, please. And then once that's populated, you can't start it, okay? Look, I wanna start it, but it won't start. See, continue without balancing. Well, if you did that, this battery won't balance. So you need to plug in the balance lead. That's what this is for. So then you plug this in and you can hit cancel, and then I can press this and hold and start it. Okay, then that's gonna charge this battery so that it's ready to use. But just remember, this weird cable and the cables that we're trying to showcase in this video are all kind of hard to find. And so as a result, we will link to these in the video description below. We don't just wanna get commission on sales, but that's a big part of it. When you follow the links, we'll be commissioned on sales, but we know it's hard to find this stuff. So if you don't know the exact right vernacular that they use, you won't find it, okay? So we will link to these, follow the links, buy the stuff you need, and then help support Brian Phillips RC. So we tell you that so you know what you're getting into. Now, this end is really handy too, because then I can use this to charge my new style batteries, or I can use this to then go and fly one of my IC2 equipped helicopters or airplanes. And we do have some airplanes that are equipped with the micro pH, excuse me, not the micro pH as much as this. I think that the Draco, if I recall, the Draco has a JST, but we have seen, I'm trying to remember which plane it was.
No, there's only a couple of them.
There's only a couple of them that had this type of connector, and I'm trying to remember what it was.
Is the Waco?
No, the Waco's not. There was a helicopter we did, and I'm trying to remember. I don't even think it was this one, because that one had JST as well. But there was a helicopter we did not too long ago, and I forget which one it is. So forgive me for that. But I like having a lot of tools in my tool bag so that when I need to do something, I can do it, okay? So this charger cable allows you to charge the IC2 ends which these are not cross-compatible with XTs. Like these will be cross-compatible with XT60s, okay? One direction, not the other, okay? But these are not at all because the pin spacing is different, okay? An XT30 is a totally different pin spacing, and you can see by example here. This is an XT30. You see the pin spacing? It's far enough off you can't squeeze them together, okay? And then obviously, like I was saying, depending on these, obviously can't mate up, okay? But these can, okay? XT60. It's just kind of challenging to plug these in. And there are certain XT60s that do better than others. This one would go, but you can see it's just giving me a real heck of a time. Just for grins, I'll grab just another one and we'll find that this one just happens to fit. And that does put a little side load pressure on your connectors, full disclosure. But we do it all the time and it works fine, okay? All right, enough about batteries. Batteries are kind of boring business, but it's important because if you don't have the right battery, you won't fly your plane. And if you can't charge your battery, then there's no sense in having the airplane.
Right.
So that's why we take the time on Brian Phillips RC to try to teach you some of the tips and tricks. This is not so much a trick as much as it is an absolutely necessary mandate of using the older style batteries should you decide to do it. Now keep in mind, these older style batteries are all 2S. So I think the vast majority of us are going to be flying on 3S. I don't even know if they recommend this on a 2S because they did not mention it in the manual. Even though this newer 2S 50C pack does have all the correct infrastructure for plugs, this one is one that we have rarely used because if the plane is capable of 3S, I'm using 3S.
Yeah.
That's generally my rule of thumb, okay?
And usually if they list other sizes down here under, there'll be another box that says optional and it'll have all the different battery sizes. And
what size is that anyway that they called out?
3S 300 30C.
Okay. So now this is a 3S, this is a 4S 300C. So this is the one that we would use in the Draco to be legally compliant sub 250. But if you don't care about the compliance, then you can go up to this one, which is a 450C 4S, okay? And yes, look at that. And guess where this comes in handy? This was for the jet. That's right, it was for the jet.
Oh.
The F86 UMX.
Yes,
okay?
That sounds right.
But guess what? Now you need adapters so that you can run this in your Draco, right? You see what I'm saying? There's just a lot of adapters that you need and it's annoying and people complain about it for good reason, but we're gonna help you figure out exactly what adapters you need. And so when we link to all this crap, then you can find it and it'll be easier. And my suggestion is if you don't have the old 2S micro PHs, don't worry about this. You don't need it.
Right.
And I wouldn't get it unless you need it, okay? This you don't need if you're not using it, so don't worry about it. But over here, you're gonna need either this style of adapter or this style of adapter so that you can plug that in to your smart charger. And that is assuming you're gonna be using a smart charger. I hope you are because they are excellent. And this is why I like smart batteries. Suppose I want to charge this battery. This is a smart battery. Watch how hard this is. It's been set one time. Now it's charging and I can walk away, stay in close safety proximity, and then when it's done, I come and unplug it. That's it. It's super nice. So as you can see, it's charging, it's at 62%, and you can see all the different information about it. You can see charge cycles, the internal resistance, all sorts of good stuff. And then you can walk out. You can go up. See all this stuff? Isn't that pretty sweet? Nice. So that is why, my friends, that I like smart batteries. And I like that feature. You can turn this off.
Yes.
With the flip of a switch. So like us, when you have a big setup, a spread of chargers in your kitchen, then it makes it just that much cleaner. Okay, so now radio setup. The reason we go through all that is because it's very important for you to know how to charge your batteries. Now, the second most critical thing is we need to set up the transmitter to work with our model. This may have the first time bind feature, but we're not sure. We're gonna find out in just mere seconds right alongside you. I am gonna wrap Velcro around mine And then I'm gonna try to put it in here. This has the hooks and this has the loops, okay? So this is soft, that's firm, okay? That allows you to get it in there really nice. So that, I don't even remember what plane I took that off of, but it's been really nice. Previously, what I used and have used in the past, if you don't have access to that, is I will make little straps out of tape and then I have a little Velcro on there. That works if you get it really good sized. If you get it to really be a nice tight fit, sometimes it doesn't because it's not tight enough and then the battery is allowed to slip. But anybody can do that in a pinch by running tape backward around the battery and then forward so that it's not sticky on either side. And then you just use the provided Velcro, okay? So I'll show you how that looks. If we were to go that route on this particular plane, you would slide this on, and then instead of this one, you just carefully peel that out, and you would put it whatever direction you want, whatever placement you want, and then of course you've got your retention, but it's just not quite as good, okay? A lot of people are just gonna take the Velcro, stick it on the battery. I understand if you decide to do that, it's not gonna be insulting to me. If I find out you do it, I don't care, whatever. But what my suggestion is, I like whatever holds the battery firmly and doesn't leave a residue and doesn't marry us to a particular position, because you'll find that a lot of these planes, they need to be in different positions, okay? So we'll drop this down in here in this somewhat imperfect spot because we haven't looked at the CG yet, which by the way, do they have CG listed in this plane?
They will somewhere.
Okay, well, since we're at this stage, why don't we go ahead and look at the center of gravity. Generally speaking, we don't have a big problem with center of gravity on ultra micros because you can only fit so many batteries, so many different places.
Yep. Yes, 35 millimeters from the leading edge.
Okay, so 35 millimeters from the leading edge. Let's go ahead and get some calipers out. We'll turn them on. We'll zero them in the closed position and 35 millimeters. So just go out to like 35 right here. Okay, that's, and remember guys, we're talking about, okay, so 600, so I don't care. So from the leading edge back, we'll just make a little dimple, and I actually slid along and made a small line. I didn't mean to do that, but that's fine too. So I'll just mimic that. It's hard to see, but I made a little line there and a little line there, okay? So once we have the battery into a position where we can be more or less happy with the way it loads, I'm gonna go ahead and get the cord just about where it needs to be because I don't wanna plug it in just quite yet. Then I'm gonna put the lid back on. Okay, and then I'm gonna flip the plane upside down and I'm gonna try to balance it right on my little line. And as you can see, that is just spot on. Nice. Okay, so beautiful. So now the options would be, do you mark the plane so that you don't have to refigure this, or do you just leave it? A lot of times what I like to do, and I don't always do this on ultra micros because it's usually pretty obvious stuff, I will grab a Sharpie and I will mark what battery is used because it's hard for me to keep track of them. We have so many planes. So it'd be like about here and about here with the wire going that way. And it's gonna say 300. Of course, that's super readable. Milliamp hour, 3S, okay? So it's important to know the 3S part. Most of these batteries are 300 milliamp hours or 400 in the E-flite brand. So not a lot of choices there, but they used to have a couple of different sizes back in the day. All right, so now that we know we have our CG worked out, we can get ready to make a model. So have you found the page where it talks about the model?
We went past that for CG. So here is the
setup. Okay, so she's gonna come back over on my right side. And we have to make a model. Okay, so we're gonna turn on our transmitter. So once it turns on, now keep in mind, guys, I have a lot of models in mine. It's gonna be a little slower than yours in loading and switching between some of the menu structure. So if you see that on mine, you might find that yours is quite a bit faster. When you have a lot of models, it does slow this transmitter down just a little bit. So I'm gonna cancel one back, and then I'm gonna scroll to the bottom. Okay. You're supposed to only be able to have 250 models, but I have several before that number. So I don't know when it's gonna crap out on me. I'm kind of nervous about it actually. So add new model, I'm gonna go create, and then this is gonna start making a new profile, okay? Now, when we first bind to this model, it may prompt me with a download from the transmitter to my, or from the receiver to my transmitter. I don't know if they have that built into this Ultra Micro yet.
Not sure.
We haven't seen that yet. And this is what I'm talking about. It takes a lot longer when you're higher in the models, okay? So now model select is where we just came from. Model type, that's already set as an acro. If you were to change that, just so you know, it resets everything. So don't do that at the end. Model name, this is where you would type in the value that you want for the name. So it's gonna be the UMX Cirrus SR22T. So I'm gonna type that in and we'll come right back. All right, so we've got the Ultra Micro Extreme Cirrus SR22T V2, okay? So then we can hit back, aircraft type. Okay, so we're gonna go back to the page that we were looking at. What page was that anyway?
Go back to
there we go. So this is on page 5. So now this is where I would look for the NX portion. If you have a DX transmitter and IX transmitter, it's a little bit different, but let's just go ahead and look at NX. I'll take my arm and cover that up again now. So the wing type, it's gonna tell you all the steps, but yeah, I can pretty much ignore all this because it doesn't really tell us anything. Okay, so it's a normal wing type. Obviously there's no flaps involved, but it's possible that you can do the stick trick and get flaperons if you really want. I don't think I'm gonna set up flaperons on this because they're so far outboard on this wing. I don't think that they're gonna be super effective. And if somebody really wants to add flaps on this, it's gonna be tough because look at the way, there would be room, but it's just, I don't know. I love the flaps on my big Cirrus, so I'm bummed that I didn't see those. We haven't seen a lot of flaps on Ultra Micros, which is something that we saw on a few Ultra Micros. I'm not sure why they got away from that. So I'm gonna select an image, go from the standard image file, and just gonna find a general aviation plane. I think we got like a Cherokee or something like that, might be pretty close. Do we have a Cirrus? I'm surprised we don't have updated files. We got the Cessna 310. Man, that'd be awesome if we had a 310. I think that's a 310, or maybe it's a King Air. I'm not sure, but I would love to have that. But you can pick whatever picture you want. You don't, is that another one?
Looks really similar.
Is it not the same?
The same.
That's weird. Looks like we're probably, I'll just do the Carbon Cub. And then a flight mode setup. I don't know that I really have to set up the flight modes because it's going to be on the gear switch for safe select or AS3X. So we might come back to that and change that a little bit later. And the channel assigns we don't have to mess with. So we should be able to just walk right out. There's not a lot of setup on this plane. And then servos, rates and expo. I'm going to set up everything on one switch, switch F. I'm going to set it to 5%. At the top, so that's least expo, which is going to soften the sticks. Then I'm going to set it, oh geez, scrolly wheel freak out. So I'm going to set this to 10%, and then I'm going to set this to 20%, and then I'm going to drop the rate back down to 90. So basically my dual rates and expo are tied to the same switch. So I have this here, and this here. I'm gonna start in the middle. So I start with 10. If I want less, I want a more sensitive stick, I can go up to 5. It's gonna half the expo. Or if I want a less sensitive stick, I can go down to about a doubling effect, which will also then reduce my rates to 90. My suggestion to anybody that uses a lot of rates, use more expo and less rates because you give up less max throw. So if you're coming close to a tree, you can pull the stick further and actually get more output so that you don't crash as easily, okay? So then from ailerons, we'll do the same thing on elevators. So we just highlight that, exercise the switch you want it to be up, and I scrolled on accident. So if you ever do that, you can just highlight it, exercise it. You see how it didn't work? Watch this. Highlight, inhibit, okay? Highlight, and then exercise the switch. You see it doesn't work? You got to have it highlighted. It wasn't highlighted, okay? And you see, if you don't acknowledge that, then it just keeps scrolling, okay? Then you use the same button, the same switch to actually impact change. Okay. Okay, 10, and then 20. Click. And then reduce this rate. So if you're brand new to Brian Phillips RC, we do this for every plane that we set up. Sometimes they're bind and flies like this, which just means you bind it and it's like basically ready to go. You still have to set up your model profile. But if it's a plug and fly where you actually have to install a receiver, we go through the setup on that as well. And just keep in mind, a lot of times planes, if you haven't seen us review a particular plane, you can usually get where you want to get by following along with a similar wing typed plane. So something with inboard flaps and ailerons and a tail just like this might get you what you need, okay? Okay, so we've got 5%, 10%, and 20% expo while dropping the rates down a little bit in the most insensitive stick position. So this is where we're gonna start. If it's not sensitive enough, we go up here and that's gonna act for all three axes of control, both the pitch on the elevator, the yaw on the rudder, and the roll on the ailerons, okay? And they're all tied together. And the idea is that when you're flying, you get in the air, you make your decision. If you have too sensitive of an aileron stick, then you would just go back to a more dead end stick. All three axes are going to respond. So when you land, then you can make your adjustment to just that one that was of concern, and then you can go back to the middle. So for instance, you'd go back in. Let's say the ailerons were too touchy and you went down to this setting, okay? You get to the ground, you realize, okay, I really want more ailerons. So you would make that 20. You would go to your middle setting so that the other two can go back to where they were, and you would set this to 20. Then this one, you would maybe set to like 40, okay? And then this one, of course, you're never gonna be there because it was too touchy at 10, okay? So then you would set that to 10. So you have a halving and a doubling. See what I say? All right, so now just for grins, that's how you would do it, but I'm gonna go ahead and scroll these back to kind of my default initial setup. If this confuses you, it's because you haven't been flying radio-controlled airplanes for a long time, so just take my word for it, and it's a good starting point. Now, throttle cut, I want to set to switch H, so you have to scroll down to inhibit, highlight it, and then exercise the switch you want by moving it. Click to acknowledge, and then you can look down here at this little monitor, and it's going to tell you what the output is. So as I move the throttle stick, there's no movement. It's just at -100 no matter where I put the stick. Okay, so that means the throttle cut's working. It's on. Now when I turn it off, the throttle cut is not working because now it works. The throttle works. So that would make the propeller spin. I turn it back on and it's working. Just be careful that you acknowledge your exercised switch, otherwise it'll just keep switching as you screw with it, okay? So I'm gonna walk out. I'm gonna walk out. Now we're gonna set a timer. Did they say anything about the timer?
No.
They did?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I'm gonna just set it to 5 minutes to start. I'm gonna do one out. Okay, so you can see that it's active over 25%. So when I go over 25%, the timer is gonna start counting down, and it's gonna keep counting down. If you shut off the one time, then it's only going to operate the timer when you're past the 25% throttle mark, okay? So there is some difference of opinions on how this might be used. I usually just turn the one time active. So that means it starts the timer when I take off. It shuts the timer off, never. It just runs out and then I can clear it and cancel if I want to reset it, okay? So the clear button clears it, okay? At 1 minute, I want a voice. At 20 seconds, I want nothing. At 10 seconds, I want a voice countdown. So I'm gonna go to voice, and expiration will be tone and vibrate with a tone every minute thereafter. Now, this is where you would lose some value on the NX7E. It's considerably cheaper. You've got less channels, obviously no sliders. It's just got the rotary knob up at the top. And if you look at this, you can see there's no sliders, okay? But you also don't have the voice call outs. So you would just have beeps. And the beeps are not a big deal until you start getting into like Vario and different call out features that you actually care about. Those are things that you might actually want at some point, but it's not necessary for most of these planes to fly. It's just some of the features that you might want call outs for voltage warnings and things like that. So having that audible alarm and audible structures like that are really helpful. Okay, so I'm gonna walk back out. So now we need to set up a connection between this and that, so we have to bind it to the plane. So it's a pretty easy process on an ultra micro. Generally, it just automatically goes into bind mode if it's not bound to the transmitter. So just be careful because the prop could start if something went wrong, but it would have to go wrong for it to start. Also, if you're at a flying field and you're setting this up and your buddy is also setting his up, just be careful, be aware, you know, listen to what's going on, look at what's going on. Don't have somebody else accidentally bind to your plane and give the throttle and then have it fly across the, you know, the pits, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plug this in, but just be careful about props. Because remember, really, at the end of the day, the safety issues we deal with in this hobby are lipos, fire safety, and props getting cut. You don't wanna get cut, you don't wanna burn your house down, both of which would suck, okay? Cuts from an ultra micro are generally not as bad as cuts from something like that with a huge 14, 15, 16, 17 blade, 17-inch blade. That'll be like hospital time, you know, losing fingers time. This would be like, ouch, that's really obnoxious and I might need to go get some stitches, but they won't hopefully be picking up your fingers, all right? So just be careful. It's not that big a deal. If you use throttle cut, you generally protect yourself, but remember, we're not bound yet. So there is real no command and control over this until you prove it. The safeguards that are in the system should keep you safe, but I don't trust them until I see it work, okay? And that's a good rule of thumb, keeps you safe as you're flying or doing other activities too, okay? So I'm just gonna have my hand high enough that I don't get cut if it were to go. Until I trust a plane, I don't trust it. So the negative is down in this case, it's a short lead. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and rotate this so it makes it easier to plug in. So once I plug it in, we see some lights come and we see some flashing. Nothing sparks to life and we're in the red and blue lights. So now I'm gonna click and I'm gonna scroll down to bind. There's bind. And I'm gonna bind. Make sure you're on the right model. I've got my hand here just in case. And you'll notice the strobes don't start until it is actually running, which is pretty cool. Okay, so the auto configuration's happening so that the telemetry data is preset and ready to go. Also, you notice the prop hasn't started spinning, so at this point, I don't trust it because I have my throttle cut on. I'm gonna hold my plane, I'm gonna apply throttle. I notice that I can now trust it. With the throttle cut off, it doesn't start. That is a lot of power. Throttle cuts on, AS3X is activated, okay? So you can see that that blue light's lit. That blue light means that we are on, we're working, and since it's not flashing between red and blue, it's now bound to a transmitter. Hopefully it's yours, okay? So at this point, I can bring this plane, and you're like, why don't you put the canopy on? Because I wanna show you some more lights, but we can look through the window, which is pretty sweet. That is a great fit, by the way. So elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right, and it looks like they have differentials. So this one goes up more than this one goes down, and this one goes up more than that goes down. That's called differential. Yaw left, yaw right. Now let's check the steerable. Looking at the nose gear, yaw left, yaw right. Very cool. So those are the primary control surfaces. Now, do we have safe on or off? I don't know because I can't tell. I'm gonna flip the plane upside down. Now that we have the throttle cut tested, I can have my hand in proximity to the prop. It is on right now. How do we know that safe is on? When I look at this plane, I can see that the ailerons are doing this weird thing where when I find the middle, it's trying to find the quickest route to level. So it would have pushed this wing up. Can you see them leveling out? Eventually they go to level because we are level. Now look at the elevator. See that elevator? It is trying desperately to bring the nose up. Now the nose is level. Now, if the nose were pointed up, it's gonna desperately try to bring it to level. So, once we know that we're in safe, now we have to figure out how do we get that turned off, or do we want it to be turned off? The gear switch changed the light condition. See that light? Mm-hmm. Now it's in AS3X, now it's in safe. The other light is a status light for power, okay? That may be radio connection. And so let's just test that theory. That little red light, watch this. I'm gonna turn off my plane while, no, just go back to where you were. You had it.
I can't see that little red light.
That light, okay? I'm gonna turn this off. It's giving me a warning. Keep it pointed right there. Shut down. See, the light went off, but my plane's not off. Now this went into what's called fail-safe. So look at the aileron. That one went down, this one went up. So it's gonna point it like this. And guess what it's gonna do? It's gonna fly it in a circle in a glide until such a time as this thing comes back on. It's trying to level the aircraft, by the way. Watch this. As soon as this comes back live, it's gonna basically, look,
yep.
Now it's back into flight mode, just like nothing ever happened. The difference is I will have had to change my pants and shorts to clean them out. But that's what fail-safe looks like on an AS3X equipped with safe plane, okay? It would have been attempting to automatically level and loiter, okay? Without throttle, which means it's going to slowly descend to Earth, thus minimizing the possibility of damage. That's assuming you're out in a big open field and not like next to a giant waterway,
right,
or a building or a tree or 4,000 trees. Whatever it happens to be, you have to put yourself in a circumstance where fail-safe will actually work, okay? But that's pretty much it for setup. Now, let's talk about the setup, because here's the thing. When I use AS3X and safe, I am used to having it here. That does nothing for me now, okay? My safe in AS3X is tied to my gear switch. So I wanna see if I can change that by going into forward programming. It probably doesn't even let you in, okay? It's attempting to connect. Okay, good, so it failed. So that tells me that this has the same firmware as previous Ultra Micro Extreme models, which don't really require the forward programming to do what we need to do. So what's very good about that is so long as you have DSMX, you may even be able to bind to another protocol. If you can, I don't know it yet, but I can tell you this right now. If it's SLT, if it's dual protocol, that's pretty cool. I don't know, does it say it in the manual? Let's look.
I did not see it, but.
Okay, so transmitter, receiver. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about dual protocol. Because which one's dual protocol? The 700 Stoll Apprentice? Because that's SLT and DSMX,
yes.
Okay? So SLT 6 is the transmitter that you can get that's super cheap. I don't know if that one will work on this. Just looking at this through the manual real quick. Yeah, I don't see anything about it. It might be there. We'll find out. If we find out, we'll mention it in our flight. But for now, just assume it's DSMX, which means you need to use a Spectrum transmitter, okay? Forward programming doesn't let you in, so what would we do if you wanted to make a change? Okay, so what we would do is there's two ways you could do it. You could do a digital switch setup, and that's where you take and throttle cuts on. I'm gonna exercise switch A, and then you could make changes to this switch here, except that doesn't actually do it.
Because you want to change it to D.
I want to change it to D. So what I would do is I would go to system setup, disconnect RF, and then I would go to channel assign. It went back to failsafe. Channel assign, because my radio system's off. The transmitter's on, but the radio system's off. All right, so sorry, I got interrupted by a phone call. So now what we're trying to do is we're trying to get back to where we were. We're reassigning. I want to reassign my safe to switch D. Pretty easy to do. So you can just go into channel input. So we happen to know that channel A, or switch A, is tied to channel 5, the gear switch, okay, 5. All right, so all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna switch this to D. That's one way you could do it, okay? But then once you switch it to D, okay, and I can unconnect or disconnect switch D from channel 6, okay? Because we're not using that. Once you've done that, then you can walk back out to the main menu and you can see that this will now impact the light condition. You see how it's blue, now it's red, now it's red, okay? So I want AS3X to be up top and I want safe to be down at the bottom. I would normally make an offsetting in the middle, but I can't do that given the circumstances of this setup. So I would probably prefer AS3X, AS3X, and safe. And you're like, but Brian, it switches to safe in the middle too, okay? So the way you can do that is now you can go down to digital switch setup and you can make a change to switch D's behavior. So this would be plus 100. This would also then be plus 100, okay? All right, so once we get that to 100, then we can just click to acknowledge the entry. Okay, so now this will be safe, and this will be AS3X, and this will be AS3X. You guys see how that works? Mm-hmm. Now, again, I'm not just doing this to be picky. I'm doing this to match and closely mimic my other planes. You may not want to do that. You may not care. But look what happens when I switch the gear. Nothing. Look at the light. Nothing changes. Okay, are you looking at the light? Okay, I can't tell.
I can.
So as I flip the switch, nothing changes. Why do I care about switch A being tied to safe? Because when I take off, I have muscle memory to retract the gear and to deploy the gear during landings. So what does that do? That changes me in or out of safe. Because I have that habit, which is a human habit, you may not share that because you may not have that habit. That also means that I have to take my hands potentially off the sticks to get to this. I usually do. To make my switch condition change, I take my hands off the sticks. You don't have to do that. You can reach around with your fingers, but that screws me up enough that I just find that it's easier to just use my thumb because I'm a thumb flyer, okay? If you're a pincer gripper, you can probably get to that much easier. Camera crew's gonna come back around again. Okay, so if you don't want to do this, there is another way you can do it, and that is if you go to System Setup and you disconnect the RF, then you can go into F mode setup and you can make a flight mode. You don't have to make a flight mode for this to work, any of this, but this will give me one added big benefit, and that is labels. I like labels because look, when you're in this mode, once it light, you can't tell what mode you're in on the screen, okay? I can't tell what's being commanded. So when it's in the air, you can usually see because of the behavior of the aircraft. But if you want to be able to see the easiest possible way, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to clear my digital switch setup, okay? Select, switch D. I'm going to put this back to the default setting so that you guys can see how this would work. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to go to System Setup. I'm going to disconnect RF. And this time, I'll take you right back to the Virgin setup here. So this would have been switch A. And then this would have been switch D by default. Okay, so now from default, do you see it switched to B, didn't it? Nope.
No, it didn't. That's okay.
So we can go into, instead we'll do it the other way, which is where I want to set up a flight mode. Remember, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to do it. So I want switch D to control the flight modes. Okay, then I'm going to go to spoken flight mode, and I want this to say AS3X. So I'm going to highlight, cancel, cancel, clears it. And then I'm going to scroll in the value that I want it to say. So this is going to say AS3X, which stands for Artificial Stabilization 3-Axis. Okay, now remember, this is just a label. It doesn't actually make the change in setting, but I like the label, okay? Now I'm going to go in here, I'm going to scroll way down, and I'll make the audio event for this as well. Okay, so we're almost down to where the AS3X is. So there's safe mode. So just a little bit past there, it says AS3X mode. Okay, then this says nothing. So I want it to also say AS3X mode. Why? Because we don't have an off setting here. I would normally type the word off and I would say off, okay? So in this case, I'm gonna scroll in AS3X. And I know a lot of you guys are shaking your heads and thinking, this is a lot of work to have a label, but you wanna know how many times somebody has handed me a transmitter and they have some random off-the-wall switch assigned for every plane. It's different. And I'm like, no wonder you crash your planes because you don't know where the freaking switches are. Start making a decision and live with it. AS3X, and we're gonna do the exact same thing. AS3X mode. Okay, ready? Test. Test. And then every time you make a switch condition change, it's gonna call out whatever you have typed in there. Okay, so I'm gonna highlight, cancel, cancel, cancel. And then this one's gonna say safe, which stands for sensor assisted flight envelope. sensor assisted flight envelope, or safe, okay? Then I'm gonna highlight this and I'm gonna scroll to safe, which is way down here again. Okay, so once we get to safe, we'll acknowledge that, test it, and that's what it's gonna say. It's gonna say this on the display, and then it's gonna actually say this out loud. So I'm gonna hit back. Now I'm gonna go down to channel assign, and for this, I can choose either switch D, or I can scroll all the way to the left to flight mode, you see? Then I can cancel the connection between channel 6. Now watch what happens. Walking out. Now we have red. So now look, this is AS3X, that's safe, and that's safe. Okay? Pretty cool. But you're like, wait, how did that work? How did that work? Because this is now tied to the mode, not the switch. You're like, but you had to do the digital switch setup. No, this is now a switch that controls the flight mode. So it's flight mode 1, 2, or 3. And guess what? This is flight mode 1, makes it AS3X, okay? Flight mode 2 is evidently AS3X, or excuse me, safe, and then this is safe. So guess what we need to do now? Now we have to go in and do the same dang thing. You can either reverse the servo by going in here and doing that, but I don't like that because that still has this middle position. You have plus 100, you have minus 100, and then you have 0. I don't like it floating at 0, okay? So I'm gonna go into digital switch setup, and we're gonna do the same thing we did earlier. I'm gonna attach it to switch D. Now, I don't know if you can type this and do flight mode. Flight mode, look at that.
I can.
See that? Pretty cool, huh? So now you can scroll this up, and you can set this to 100, okay? Or you could set it on switch D, okay? But in our case, flight mode is controlled by switch D, and so it does switch D things. So there's blue, and there's red, right? Blue, 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 red. And now look at the screen. Now there's 0 ambiguity. Not only can you hear her telling me what we're in every time you make a change, but you can see it visibly by looking at the light, or you can see it by the behavior of the airplane. Okay, why do we go through all these tedious steps on Brian Phillips RC? Because everybody else is just gonna say, open the box and fly it. If you're brand new to the hobby and you don't know what you're doing, we're gonna help you while the others are gonna leave you on the sidelines. Because I know how tedious this can seem to somebody who's done this before. But just remember, when you were a brand new pilot, you didn't know how to do any of this crap, okay? If you were a pilot from yesteryear in the 1980s and you had a crystal that you had to slide into your Futaba radio and you had to slide that crystal into your receiver, that was pretty much the gist of it, right? Does the crystal match the flag on the end of my obscenely long antenna? And does the crystal match on my plane? Sure does. I'm gonna go to the flight field and I'm gonna check the crystals board and I'm gonna make sure that my 27 megahertz doesn't already, oh, this guy's using 27. Well, I'm gonna have to switch out to 82. So I'm gonna put my 82 in, I'm gonna put my 82 in. Now I'm bound up and ready to go and I'm not interfering. So I'm gonna take my 82 key and I'm gonna put it up on the board so people know 82 is flying. Oh, it's Brian, he's flying the Cirrus SR22T Ultra Micro. That's what used to happen. So remember guys, the technology that we're using now is still based on premises that were set long ago. But if you have no connection between then and now, if you're just coming back to the hobby from a 15-year hiatus, you're gonna have no clue what the heck bind even means. Well, maybe 15 years ago you might have known, but 25 years ago you wouldn't have known, okay? Why do I know that you wouldn't know? Because I didn't know when I started at this, okay? I knew radio systems, I knew a lot about them, but you would not believe what you can do with this thing for a little bit more or maybe a little bit less than a 4-channel Futaba that you would have got in 1990. You can do so much more with this, okay? It's amazing. And then the precision of flight is just nothing you've experienced if you're just coming back to the hobby, even in a small model like this, okay? Or a big model like that T-28 back there, or any one of the thousands of different planes that we've flown, hundreds, I should say. We've done thousands of videos, but we haven't done thousands of planes. We've done hundreds of planes. And I can tell you this right now, the toy grade experiences that you see us do occasionally from time to time, something like this is getting pretty good, but it's still not quite the same as an ultra micro. This is still brushless, but I'm telling you, we have the cream de la cream. This is the best you can get. It is the cat's meow when it comes to small planes. Ultra micro extremes are the best experience. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to follow the link to buy this plane, because we will make commissions when you do that. I'm saying that because we come to you with full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. I'm Brian Phillips, RC. We want to teach you what you need to know to be able to fly these amazing planes. And we want you to win in the hobby. We want you to get out of the chair and into the air. All these catchphrases you hear us use are for a reason, because there's a million ways that you can crash a plane and fail and have a miserable experience, and you can spend a lot of money doing it. And you're probably gonna quit. And you're just gonna go back to playing on your tablet or playing video games or, you know, duck hunting or whatever it is that you do. I don't care what it is. It's just that's the first thing that came to mind. And it's not mutually exclusive that you duck hunt or fly radio controlled airplanes. But at the end of the day, everybody has a lot of different hobbies and different things that they do for pastimes. This is one of the hardest you're gonna do. Learning to fly model airplanes or model helicopters, quads, VTOLs, all that stuff. You can get a quad that will fly itself. You can get a drone that will fly itself completely. You can fly those helicopters. They will pretty much fly themselves. You have to know the basics of the controls, but they'll fly themselves. It's crazy. They'll return to home. They'll land in front of you. You can lay the transmitter on the ground, fly it off here, let go of the transmitter, put it on the ground, go to the bathroom, come back and take a dump, and it's landed on the ground, okay? I wouldn't recommend that. It's not a safe idea, but it's truly possible. This plane, not quite that much. But this is gonna help you with stabilization, so when the wind blows on the wing, you know, it's gonna tip the plane, it's gonna resist that. That's what artificial 3-axis stabilization does. When there's a yaw moment on it because it gets hit by a wind gust, it's gonna resist that. So it's gonna keep it going straight. Same thing here, it gets pushed up, it's gonna resist that. So if you have 3 axes of stabilization, then that means hypothetically you could take this and throw it like a dart and it would fly straight as an arrow. Well, maybe not perfect, but it's gonna resist the impact of wind. And it's gonna do it better than we've done in the last 10 years. They're even better than they've ever been because the technology has improved so much. But then with the quite literal flip of a switch, you can have this thing automatically level itself too. So you can literally take this and throw it out the window and it'll just fly like straight like this. And then should you do something really dumb, like pull the battery out of this or shut it off, it's gonna then lock into a failsafe and go in circles until it crashes into your pond. I'm just joking, hopefully that doesn't happen. But there's so much technology that's squeezed into this to help make it easy to fly, but it does take a little bit of effort to set up. And that's what we're gonna do here on Brian Phillips RC. So if you're brand new to the hobby, you're in the right place. Brian Phillips RC is here to help you get out of the chair and into the air. And we start from a box that we got off of our doorstep, and we show you the entire process. And we make it so easy because if you like our experience, you can quite literally follow the link and you'll have a box that shows up on your doorstep just like that. All you have to do is buy it. And so when you do buy it, you support Brian Phillips RC and our little channel here. And my wife, the camera crew, helps me film all this stuff. Even though she's not obsessive with aviation and models like I am, she tolerates it very well for being a spouse of mine. But then all this other crap you see here, it's a little bit more excessive than usual because we happen to have some construction going for visitor quarters that are going to act as visitor quarters for when people fly in full scale, because we have flown full scale planes into this property, which is super cool. We're building what's called an aerodrome right now. So we are all in on aviation, RC, and just living this life, okay? So when you see the others on YouTube, some of them do the same thing. They'll open a box, they'll show you a plane, kind of what it does, how it performs. They'll give you their opinions. Of course, we did that during the flight. We're not gonna be flying this plane in this wind,
Nope.
just to be clear. But I don't see a lot of other YouTubers that have an aerodrome that they're flying from. So again, we're not trying to beat anybody up. This is something that we've spent literal life savings, multiple life savings to do. And we love doing it. We're not just doing it to sell you this plane, okay? I don't even really care if you get this plane. I just want you to get the plane that's right for you, right where you are right now. And if this is for you right now, I think you're gonna be happy because I have flown the predecessor and it was a cool plane. But it's one of the very few that I haven't actually owned myself, which is pretty cool. So I'm super excited to bring you this. We love the fact that we're able to work with these manufacturers to bring you early releases like this. It's super exciting for us because I love this stuff. And I love helping people, especially people that think they can't do it, okay? Because I'm telling you this right now, if you have hands and you're in reasonably good health and your eyes work somewhat, or you have corrective lenses or whatever, then you should be able to do this. It is not impossible. Now let's also measure the weight of this. I forgot to measure that earlier. If you want to be fully compliant with the law, there is this stupid program called a remote ID, and remote ID says that this plane would have to be under 250 grams to not need a remote ID module. And that would be batteried up, all up weight. You'll see that the wheels are a little bit wider than this, so I'm gonna have to put a little something on here. Do we have something clear I can put on there, camera crew?
Like a jar or a cup.
We'll do this. So we'll just zero the scale. And if you guys didn't already know this, I work on industrial scales for a living. 160 grams.
Nice.
That is a really good size
Yeah,
glass. That's a big plane for 160 grams. So if you guys want to know, you don't need to have a remote ID module in there. But even if you do get a plane that's not sub 250, that's bigger, like that Cessna 182 down on the ground, or the F7F that's right above it, or whatever it happens to be, we have done so many different planes. There's a number of different options. You can legally comply if you care to do so. I'm not telling you to do it. I don't care if you do it. But there's this Sky module you can use. It's made by Horizon, or you can get for even less. You can get this Ruco module, okay? You set it up, you assign it to yourself so that when you do something stupid, the feds can come to your doorstep and arrest you and put you in jail. I don't think that's gonna happen. But the truth is, it's not that hard to comply if you decide to do it. We did not have those things when the rules went into force, which is ridiculous. And they demanded things that didn't exist from out of
Magic.
ether, you know?
Yeah.
So fortunately, some people have jumped on board and tried to make some money on it, okay? That being said, we're gonna try to help you as much as we can. Where we don't do a lot of help is in compliance issues because rules change over time. And I don't wanna tell you something that's gonna get you in trouble, but let's just say it this way. This is sub 250. Generically, you're safe to fly sub 250 at your local schoolyard on the weekends or whatever. You go to a church parking lot or whatever, and you'll be generally, you're gonna be fine unless they kick you out of there, okay? Let's make one thing straight. Let's be clear. Most people think flying little planes is cool. Yeah. They're kind of a little bit nervous about helicopters and they hate drones, okay? If you're a drone lover, I get it. I have drones. I know what it's like because they assume there's like some super high-tech camera that they can zoom for 4 miles. We all know in the hobby that that's not what happens, but they don't. And that's where the Karens come from, out of the woodwork. So just make people love this hobby just like we do. And the best way to do that is to show them a plane like this, make them super jealous so they want one too, and get them addicted. And then guess what? They're no longer Karens. They're gonna be anti-Karens. They're gonna love it so much, they're gonna be like the proselytizing how great RC is. And yes, if you hear that buzzing, these are kind of noisy servos. Okay, so we've hopefully answered a few questions. We haven't opened too many cans of worms, but we want to get you guys from the chair to the air, and the best way to do it is to show somebody doing that exact process. So you saw us fly this already, obviously not today with the wind, so this was filmed at an earlier date, but we're going to show you exactly how it flies. We're going to show you our thinking, what we feel about how this thing flew, and whether or not it's something that we would encourage you to buy. But we're going to show you exactly if you already did buy it, how to go from the box into the air, okay? If you ever have questions or you didn't get the answer already in the Unbox Build radio sub, it was super long, and we try our best to make sure we cover our bases, then all you have to do is leave it in the comments below. We'll do our best to get back with you with answers. And special thanks to our Patreons who support us financially out of their own cash, which is crazy. And same thing for YouTube super thanks for one-time donators. We appreciate you guys. And YouTube members, which are just like Patreon except through the YouTube channel, okay? We appreciate you guys supporting us monthly. It's really helpful. It keeps the channel running. Thanks for doing it. Now, also, if you want to support us financially, but you don't want to buy one of these planes, we have PayPal as well. Just remember, we're friends and family as far as we're concerned because you're just giving us a donation. That's cool. We always accept that, and we think it's super nice of you to do that. But we come full circle, and we always say this 100% of the time. We would rather you buy an amazing airplane that you see in the backdrop here, or something that we've done in the past, or maybe one of these beautiful helicopters that you've seen us do in the past, or an SR-71, you know, or a Draco, or whatever it is that meets your fancy. Because at the end of the day, of course, these marketing companies, they want to sell the plane, and that's their number one objective. I don't work for them, I work for you. So, as a result, I'll tell you what I think of this plane. The camera crew and I will give you our assessment of the overall experience. If it's bad, you'll know because you'll see. If it's good, you'll know because you'll see. But we're not going to sit up here and say fastest, bestest, cheapest, because that's just a waste of everybody's time. And these are long videos, okay? We want you to understand what you're getting before you get it, before you put your hard-earned money into a particular model. And we're going to do that on a consistent, reliable basis. And we hear it from literally hundreds of thousands of people over the years that they need that. They need the help, okay? And I know there's that. That's probably not an exaggeration, hundreds of thousands of people. Some in person at RC events, sometimes on comments, but we've heard it a lot of times. So we're gonna keep doing that. I know it gets a little bit long and tedious for you guys that are just looking for a quick answer. We're not gonna be great for that, okay? But what we are good for is brianphillipsrc.com. That's our website. You can go there by typing in brianphillipsrc.com, or you can type bprc.me, and that will bring you to our website as well. And on our website, we have a comparison tool where you can look at different planes. You can see the video, the full Unbox Build radio setup, just like the Unbox Build radio setup you saw on this Cirrus SR22T. And then you can watch the Unbox Build radio setup on another Ultra Micro, like this Waco or that Waco. Mm-hmm. By the way, that Waco is awesome.
Yeah.
Very good Ultra Micro. And you can see our flight experiences with that. So like if you've got $200 burning a hole in your pocket, or $300 burning a hole in your pocket, or $1,000 burning a hole in your pocket, we will help you to stretch it as far as it can be stretched. And if it snaps into two airplanes, I can't stop that. So just remember, there's snakes in the basement, honey. Don't go down there. You might not like what you see. Or maybe there's 400 planes and she just told you to get 300. And also, the beer truck is right around the corner. It's coming to get you. You can't guarantee that you're gonna have tomorrow. And if you haven't started flying because you're like, I'll do that next year, just remember, you're not always guaranteed that opportunity. Something could change. You could have, you know, like I said, the beer truck could plow you tomorrow. You could have a bird peck out your eyes, both of them, which would be very weird. You could die in a fire car accident. I'm always thinking of these terrible things that could happen to you. You could lose a hand in a meat grinder. You could fall into a meat grinder. There's lots of terrible things that happen to people all the time. But what we want to do is we want to help get you talked into flying these things now so you don't look back and say, gosh, I wish I would have done that 4 or 5 years ago. Things were good then. Why didn't I do it? Maybe there was a plane that I really liked and they stopped making it, which is honestly one of the biggest problems we have right now in model aviation, because they will make these things until people stop buying them, and then the interest dries up and they stop making them. That's really one of the toughest things. So if you see something you really like and you're maybe not skilled enough to fly it yet, we're not trying to talk you into the wrong decision, but maybe you do buy one of these more robust planes. Maybe you buy that 80 millimeter F-16, even though you're still just kind of getting your feet wet with a Habu. We're gonna help you make good decisions. That's what we do on Brian Phillips RC. We hope you've seen that in this video, and if you have, or we answered questions, or you enjoyed the content, or whatever it is, smash the like button. If you hated this video, just also go ahead and do it anyway, and you'll help Brian Phillips RC. And we're gonna try not to give you guys a bunch of BS and waste your time, because these planes are fantastic, and some of them aren't. We're gonna help you distinguish, because anybody can put a listing on a website and make this thing look great. But we're gonna show it working great or working like crap, and you get to make that decision. Because at the end of the day, we're here to serve you and not necessarily the companies we work with, but we do work with a handful of big RC companies, and it does work out nice because I love flying these airplanes. And because I've flown so many of them, I have a pretty good idea of whether or not a plane is gonna stand up to your needs, okay? All right, that's all we got for you. The Cirrus SR22T from E-flite, one of the most awesome, iconic. I wish maybe someday I can get a full-scale Cirrus. I would love this plane, even though you fly with a left-handed stick, which is kind of weird. I would love to just fly in one of these planes once. But maybe someday you can get this model and salivate over the possibility of having a full-scale one too. Oh, by the way, if you like this plane and you want the bigger version, we'll have links to it. When you click the link for this plane, if it's not been discontinued when you're watching, then you should be able to also find and purchase that plane if you prefer. And just so you know, generally speaking, the bigger planes fly a little bit better, but these ultra micros are dang close. Even though they're half the size or a third the size, they're some of the best analogs for a big plane that you can get. And that's why we say they're hobby grade flight experience and small, which is awesome. Okay, that's all we got for you today on Brian Phillips RC. We're gonna see you on the next go around. And thanks so much for watching this Unbox Build Radio setup portion of the Cirrus SR22T V2, because we want you guys to know all the ins and outs. We wanna give you the hand up that you deserve in this really pretty difficult hobby. We're gonna get you there. Stay tuned, come back for more. Thanks for watching. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips, all new from E-flite. It is the V2 Ultra Micro Extreme Cirrus SR22T. Look at this beautiful looker, amazing scale details, flies on 3S or 2S. Well, technically it's just 3S. We're doing ours on 300 milliamp hour, 30C, and beautiful three-bladed spinner and prop. You can see that little light in there change from red to blue. That's our safe and AS3X equipped. We're gonna show you all the details in our Unbox Build Radio setup, but just stay tuned. Here we go. Takeoff flaps don't exist, as you may have noticed, but I'm gonna go ahead and taxi out. Beautiful, beautiful little creation. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, she's in the air. Oh, look at those scale lines. 50% throttle right here. Oh my goodness, that is gorgeous.
Oh, that's so cool.
Okay, so if you guys didn't know anything, this is one of the very few ultra micros I've never actually flown until now. Couple clicks of trim on the tail. Oh my goodness, those lights are fantastic.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, full throttle. Little stall turn here. Oh my goodness, that thing is gorgeous. Definitely soft on the sticks. I have a little bit of expo set up on our transmitter, which if you guys are curious how we set up the transmitter, all you have to do is watch our Unbox Build Radio setup. You can see exactly what we did and you can follow along. That silver and blue is just to die for looks wise, but it does tend to disappear a little bit with our clouds and lighting conditions right now. So just keep that in mind. Thank goodness for the LEDs. And yes, in this ultra micro size class, one thing that's so cool about it is it's definitely sub 250. This is about 160 with the battery, all up weight if I recall.
Yeah, I think so.
And so you guys are fully legal, no remote ID required. And yes, you can see through the windows which is absolutely fantastic. We have the little anti-Pinocchio character inside there. He has a little bit of a nose now. Full throttle, a little bit of vibration I'm noticing. Kind of sounds like a squirrel. But beyond that, absolutely gorgeous flight performance. I wouldn't get too crazy on your aerobatics because it is a little bit slow to come out of them. Okay, now we're gonna show you safe. Here's safe. Okay, so basically safe is going to require you to really move your sticks. Boy, there's just not a lot of up going on. Gotta really move that stick when you let go of the sticks. Mine wants to go kind of downhill a little bit, so I'm not crazy about that. I'm gonna go back to AS3X. So if you find that that's true for yours, it can have to do with the way it initiates, but I don't think that's what's going on with ours. I just want to be careful we're respecting the manned aircraft that's going right overhead. They're low. Wow, let's go hang out with them. You guys see what I'm talking about? Look at this thing.
There he is.
They're low. Huh. But guys, you know I'm a sucker for scale general aviation aircraft. And make no mistake, this Cirrus SR22T is absolutely to die for. Look how nice it slows down. Let's do some touch and goes. Oh, yes. Oh, I wanted to take the landing. It was such a perfect landing. Oh, man. And by the way, it is really cold right now here in central Iowa. Pond is frozen. I was thinking of taking off and landing from the pond. Guys, look at that. Absolutely fantastic. Ground handling at speed on a scale general aviation aircraft from E-flite. Guys, if you've never flown an ultra micro, this is where you want to be when you're getting into scale aviation. Because here's the thing, if you fly them like you stole them, there you go. If you've ever flown the toy grade experience, it's just not the same, guys. These fly like they're big brothers and sisters. 1 minute left on our 5-minute timer. We went to our low voltage alarm. Let's try a landing here. I'm gonna see if I can slow it down real good. Oh, I love taking landings with the Cirrus. There it is, guys. Okay, so let's check our telemetry now. Really good ground handling. The telemetry is live feedback here. Doesn't have to be a smart pack because it's actually a dumb pack even though it's Spectrum. So when you charge them, just make sure if you're using the new 3S, you should have a JST and a balanced Hextronics plug. So all you need is one adapter that takes you from IC3 over to JST, unless you happen to have a JST equipped adapter or balance charge board, breakout board. Let's go ahead and take off again. I want to show you guys to take off the other direction though. Wonderful ground handling, very good, and gorgeous look too. Okay, getting into the throttle hard. That's our timer, she's counting down right now. So if you guys are in the mood for some general aviation flying, and I always am, then you should look no further than the Cirrus SR22T from E-flite. Very easy flying. Definitely takes the edge off. Oh, there's our critically low alarm. So we'll try to take this landing, line it up. Those LEDs are lifesavers with that type of backdrop. There it is. Beautiful. Almost dropped a wingtip. But this thing is nice and forgiving. Okay, so what an absolutely gorgeous model. I mean, you could put this on your dining room table or your coffee table, or maybe even make a plaque and mount it to it because that thing looks like an award. It is so gorgeous. And the thing I can say is this, when it comes to scale aircraft, I am a sucker. But when it comes to general aviation aircraft, I'm an even bigger sucker because I just feel like sometimes they get put by the wayside because there's so many different warbirds out there and there's so many different, you know, crazy sport aircraft. But if I can get one that looks just like its big brother or sister, then I'm all over it. And this thing looks the part. Oh my goodness. The only thing that could be better is about 50 or 60 degrees warmer would make this a lot easier on the camera crew and me. So even got the gloves, double gloved right there. So it's cold and you know it. So UMX, the Ultra Micro Extreme licensed Cirrus SR22T V2. If you had the original V1 in red and white, you may want to add this to the collection. Very easy to get the battery loaded. As you can see, I'm using the JST equipped with Hextronics balance lead. Everything is just rock solid on this plane. Very easy to fly, looks gorgeous. For whatever reason, we have removable landing gear. I don't know why you would remove the landing gear on this thing, but if I'm flying a scale aircraft that has fixed gear, I'm gonna keep my gear on, because if they have retracts on Cirrus SR22Ts, I'm not aware of it. So, what a looker though. Even that silver just looks so dang good. Look at that, with the sunset in the background. Oh, it's so gorgeous. And every time I see that window.
See through the windows.
Oh, I love it. So guys, I'm not gonna bemoan the issue. You know what you want. You wanna order one of these from the links in the video description below just about as soon as possible. Get them while they're hot. When you do order from the links in the video description below, you help support Brian Phillips RC and all the things we do RC, up to and including the Unbox build radio setup, which, is that gonna be in this video?
Part of this video.
It should be part of this video. So if you're curious about our experience with that, stay tuned. We'll show the entire drawn out experience coming up next. And look at these beautiful lights.
Yeah.
By the way, the strobes don't start until you have a radio connection, which is really cool. So you can tell if it's ready to start. So also the AS3X and Safe work really good. I did notice a little bit of a downhill tendency on mine with Safe Select on. So if you do have to fly that way and you set up flight modes, you can set up separate trims for AS3X or for Safe, and then you can trim out that downward tendency to a certain extent. I wouldn't suggest it because I wouldn't fly in Safe, but to all their own. And if you're learning to fly, this probably would not be my best pick for you. I would suggest this for somebody that knows to fly. It's not hard to fly, but it's definitely, the AS3X has it tuned nicely. It's very timid on the sticks. With this long, slender wing, there can be dropping wings. You notice it on that last landing. I got it way too slow and it just started to drop. Fortunately, I was close enough to the ground that it basically just touched down, okay? But you may not always be so lucky, okay? And then also just keep in mind, if you don't want to buy a plane or you have questions about a plane, you can leave them in the comments below, or you can head over to brianphillipsrc.com, also through bprc.me, and you can find similar offerings in this size from this manufacturer or in this genre. So in this case, it'd be like general aviation, right? And then probably scale. So when you find what you want, you can compare and contrast to other aircraft we've done in the past. And there are thousands of videos right now for you to watch on Brian Phillips RC. So we hope we answered all your questions in this video, up to and including, look at that, yep, telemetry data, super cool. You can check it out. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below. Best way to support Brian Phillips RC, smash the like button right now. Click the bell for notifications when you decide to subscribe so that you know about all the new content that's right around the corner. And there is a lot right around the corner. So we hope we'll have you back. And in the meantime, enjoy the Unbox build radio setup. And 4 other ways to support us: be a member, whether it's YouTube or it's Patreon. Either one is much appreciated. And then YouTube super thanks for one-time donations, as well as PayPal for one-time donations are always recommended. And we're happy to see them, but we would rather see you guys get an amazing plane like this. Okay, we want you in the air, flying with us, and not just living vicariously through Brian Phillips, okay? Because remember, you aren't always guaranteed tomorrow, and if you think it's hard to fly, it is. That's why we're gonna help you have success, okay? You're in the right place. You found it. It's here on Brian Phillips RC. Stay tuned. Unbox next.